public hearing and then levy the cost of the improvements. It's the final step in the special assessment process. And the public hearing is for the purpose of receiving any objections to the proposed assessments for omissions, errors, or mistakes.
Okay, we are going to open up this meeting for anyone who would like to comment. Do you want to give a few more details on what this is concerning?
This is for the special assessments on Summer Crossing and Sand Creek Station, 4th edition. This is for paving, sewer, and water.
Okay. Okay, if anybody would like to get up and come up to the podium and speak, you are welcome to do that at this time. Well, I guess we have no takers, so we are now going to close the open public portion of that. And now we are going to move on to consider an ordinance levying the special assessments for improvement projects authorized by resolutions 1-1190. Well, there's about 5 of them there. I guess, do we take them one at a time?
No, the ordinance should encapsulate all of the resolutions.
All of those?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I will move that we consider this ordinance with these resolution numbers as named.
And the ordinance number.
5116-23.
Okay, there is a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that passes. Next order of business, number 3 is utility rates. First part, we're going to consider an ordinance amending section 22-201 of the Code of the City pertaining to water utility rates and charges. Donna?
This is for the discussions that the commission has been having on the utility rates for water and sewer. And you have directed staff to develop ordinances that keep the general fund transfers intact, eliminate the extra payment for the plant upgrade loan, and gradually increase the rates over the next 6 years. It was recommended that we include a paragraph stating that the rates were to be reviewed every 3 years to determine that we're heading in the right direction. So we have included that in each of the ordinances. We are still going to spend down the reserves in the next 6 years. And sometimes that'll be less than the 3-month operating expenses. But we feel like this is the best plan to try to help the citizens not have to pay as much during this time of inflation.
And then just...
Oh, excuse me, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, excuse me, sir. I was just going to mention, to Donna's point, this is the same information you've reviewed multiple times, and you had a first read last meeting. The only change from last meeting was the inclusion of the language by the city attorney to make sure that we had a set time frame to review the ordinance so that it wouldn't set for so long as it had before without, taking into account current, economic factors. Other than that, that is the only change to the ordinance, and so it returns to you for action this evening.
And we've had several meetings and discussions and workshops on this, and we've invited the public to come speak a variety of times. So
if the bench is willing, sir, the ordinance number would be
5117-23 for the water.
yeah, excuse me, yeah, we will have 2 ordinances, excuse me, yeah, one for water and one for wastewater.
we want to do them individually, correct?
Yes, please.
Okay.
So the 5117-23 is for the water?
Is water, yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. I would make the motion we approve ordinance 5117-23 to revise the water rates for the city of Newton.
I'll second that.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, that passes. Next ordinance is number 5118-23, and this is for
Wastewater.
the wastewater.
I would make that motion that we approve 5118-23.
I second that.
Okay, there is a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. 4-1 on both of those. All right, item number 4, we're going to consider a request from Mennonite Housing to waive $20,000 in permit fees for Harvest Pointe Phase 2.
Yes, Mayor, I will start it off. You may recall you received this request at your last meeting, and you had asked for some additional time to consider the request, and I believe there are representatives from Mennonite Housing here. Included in your agenda packet was an updated phasing plan from from Mennonite Housing that changed, I believe, the difference between Phase 2 and Phase 3. And I would defer to them if they would like to speak more to that. They will definitely be more eloquently poised to speak to those changes. Mr. Adrian?
Good evening, Commission. Yes, we did make changes from what we talked about at the last commission meeting. There was some discussion about the number of units in the overall development changing from what the original projected development was. And so after we received additional information from city staff and had additional discussions on the discussion at the last commission meeting, we determined that we could go back and use the Phase 1 design, which by doing that allows us to go back to the original plan. And so now our projection is for back to 120 units rather than the 104 that we thought we were going to need to go with when I talked with you a couple weeks ago. So that is a change, and the Phase 2 is now projected to be 44 units, and then that would be the same for Phase 3. And again, as we discussed a couple weeks ago, in order for the application to really have the best chance to be approved, the fee waivers that we're requesting of $20,000 would provide that stronger application. Preliminarily, we're in pretty good shape right now on preliminary scoring, but in order for us to continue with a strong application and get the necessary points, we believe, to even have a chance at getting approved, we really need to get the fee waiver commitment, and that provides 20 points and allows us, we believe, to have the strongest application. Take any questions you've got.
So when is this application being made? I still need to get
Sure.
clear on that.
Yeah, timing on the application would be May 5.
Oh, okay.
And the way the schedule would work is that KHRC, Kansas Housing Resources Corporation, would provide feedback or provide the approvals for those that can move forward in July. They don't have a specific date on that, but sometime in July is when we'd get word. And if the application is approved, then either by the end of this year, 2023, or say the first couple months in 2024, we would be to the point where we could start construction. And we've got a meeting scheduled with city staff for, I believe, the 18th, next Tuesday, to talk through the process that we've gone through with Phase 1. We've learned what needs to be done before we can move through additional steps, and we want to make sure that we're all on the same page with Phase 2, so that when we put that timeline together, we know, are we going to be able to finish construction within 12 months, which is typical, or is it going to last longer? Phase 1 is taking a little longer than what our typical is, and so we just want to make sure we're on the same page as we go forward with Phase 2, if we do have a successful application. I will speak just briefly also to another point that was brought up at last commission, and that is the existing purchase sales agreement, the PSA agreement that's out there. And I did go back and look at it since our discussion, and it does show that we had indicated that the $25,000 that we received in fee waivers on Phase 1 is all that's mentioned in there. And I would say that's an oversight on my part. When I reviewed that document, I really should have caught that and made the indication that 25,000 was only tied into phase one. So as I've indicated in the email that I sent back prior to this meeting, we are requesting another 20,000 on phase two, and want to make sure you know, unless KHRC changes their application requirements, we'd anticipate phase three, we'd make another application. And if they keep the guidelines the same, we'd be back in making the request for another 20,000 for phase three. So again, like we talked about, 65,000 total in fee waivers. That's the way KHRC has structured this program, and so they are just encouraging municipalities to participate financially now. Wasn't the case 5 years ago, but that's some of the changes they've made.
And Commissioners, for reference, the purchase sale agreement, the PSA that Mr. Adrian references is included in your agenda packet as well, just as a refresher for you and ease of reference.
And when is the application for phase three made? And you may have said it, but I'm trying to keep all of these.
I would anticipate that's going to be at least 2 years,
Oh, okay.
at least 2 years down the road. You know, we anticipate that if we were approved this year, we would start late this year, more likely early next year, 12 months construction at least. So that gets us to where we'd be operational, moving people in towards the end of 2024. I would anticipate that the fee waivers of 20,000, if you decided to provide that, could be at some point in time during 2024. It doesn't need to be this year, wouldn't need to be this year, but we would anticipate starting construction early next year, 2024, and I believe at some point during construction, if we were able to get those waivers. So timing-wise, whether that helps from a budget standpoint or not, want to make sure you're aware of the timing on that.
So does that mean then a letter of support for the fee waivers, even just that? And then that would lead me to ask about it budgetary-wise, since it would be 2024. I mean, it could be 2024.
Yes, could be.
Do you hear what I'm trying to make sure I ask it as correctly as possible?
Well, yes, that's what we would need now, say within the next week, would be a commitment letter.
Commitment letter.
That
Okay.
we would be able to receive the $20,000 waiver for phase two. And we don't need to designate in that commitment letter timing, whether it's 2023 or 2024. But from your standpoint, as you anticipate impacts on the budget, that's what I would project would be sometime during 2024.
And you're talking calendar 2024.
Calendar,
We
yes.
need to make sure that
Calendar.
we're dealing with our fiscal year when we're looking at these numbers as well.
Correct, yeah, because the state's fiscal year is July 1. Ours, of course, is the calendar year. And then the federal tax credits come down. Federal calendar year, fiscal year is October 1. And so there's this always dance, because remember, these are federal tax credits that come to the state, and then the local entities, not at the cities, but the local developers apply for those. So it's a bit of a calendar shuffle on a regular basis. So appreciate that question and point of
So then
clarification.
This July, then, 2023, does that begin the
That begins the
fiscal year?
state's fiscal year.
fiscal year?
Yes,
for
ma'am.
2023, 2024?
Yes, ma'am, to June 30 of '24. That's the state's fiscal year. And then the tax credits can be on the state's fiscal year. In Kansas's case, I believe they are, for the award process, which is why they're pre-awarding in June-ish, July-ish.
July. July is when they'll give the indication.
Okay, that's beginning.
It is a little confusing, and I apologize for that. And to Mr. Adrian's point, in the past, the commission has directed me as the manager to provide that letter of support to include with their application. Excuse me. And typically, there's also a resolution of support, but when Ms. Rebecca checked with KHRC, they said they would accept the original resolution because it was in the PSA, because it was for the project as a whole, and so the resolution wouldn't necessarily be required again this time.
I mean, that's kind of where I'm stuck is we went into this, what we thought was eyes wide open as far as the city's investment with regards to the donation of the land and the original fee credit of $25,000 for the project and for the development of the property. It doesn't say development of phase one.
It should.
So, I don't know if we would have materially came to a different decision had we known then that this was a Phase 1 investment versus an entire project investment. But I would say that there is no guarantee that the project will move ahead if we do grant monies towards Phase 2.
There's no guarantee either way.
Exactly.
Mennonite Housing will continue to put this application in.
And that,
We believe in this application. We have a strong waiting list. We believe we've got a very good case
we
to
believe
get
in the
this
project
approved.
too. I think everyone at the bench believes in the project. The question is can we make it add up with our current budget situation?
Well, we certainly would have known how to plan for it had the original agreement been specific about each phase. But, I mean, that's behind, we can't change that now. So
Yeah.
it really boils down to budget right now. So if this 20,000, even though it's a commitment letter, how does that factor in with regard to 2024's budget then? Is that?
Well, if you remember, we just pay it out of the EcoDevo
Yes.
fund.
Yes, and you
Which
gave
really,
us,
yes, which isn't really a budgeted
No.
fund, because it's
No.
already been budgeted as a transfer, so it doesn't need budgeted again. And we replace that monies in the general fund that would have been lost. So, but you do, we talked about how much is coming out of that EcoDevo fund in the next few years as we go forward with our projects.
And we have lots of those.
And recall, for the benefit of the audience here and maybe somebody who might be watching or watching the recording later on, what happens with permitting and inspection fees and those kinds of things is that actually funds the engineering department and that staff time for those inspectors to come out and do plan review and actually do the inspections and things. And that was set up by your predecessors long before probably any of our time. And so when we do agree to a waiver of fees, we reimburse ourselves from the Economic Development Sales Tax Fund to the general fund, which is where all of the engineering and building inspection expenses are paid from. So just as a refresher.
If we don't take affirmative action on the 20,000 tonight, when's the next time that you'll come and request said money?
You mean on,
If we do
So
not approve this tonight, then will you come back in what, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months and ask for it again?
it'll be another year before we make another application. So if we don't get approval for this application going in May 5, then it'll be another year.
Okay.
You'll send in the application without the fee waiver.
We will send in the application either way. You know, you never really know what score it needs to achieve to get approved, because you don't know what else is being submitted, and so we will send it in either way just to give it a chance.
Is there a opportunity to still submit a letter of support under your signature that says, you know, had our budgetary situation been different, we may have been able to have made that investment, but however, we can't at this time? I mean,
And Mr. Adrian would probably know better from KHRC's perspective how that would be received. However, I think in the actual QAP, which is the scoring metric, so we already have the resolution for the project as a whole. That's part of that, but however, I believe it specifically calls out the minimum $20,000 investment as the point scoring item.
Yes,
So
I
a
would
letter
confirm.
would be,
Well, I don't think it would hurt anything to have the letter of support for sure.
That's
It would not be a negative to your point, Commissioner, yeah.
so, I mean, if there were two applications at the same point and everything, and one had a letter of support without the monies, then, you know, maybe that would be enough to tilt it our way, so. Just a thought, Mr. Mayor.
interesting idea. Well, how would we like to proceed?
I'm going to abstain from conversation and voting on this one. So.
Okay.
Given our current situation, I'm not in favor of making the waiver grant.
$20,000, and so, at some times, I'm going to say this, and I'll probably be crucified for it. On one hand, $20,000 can seem like chump change in very big. On the other hand, when I look at just this one particular fund, there's no room. And it's just, and yet we're very supportive of the project. I think, again, it goes back if we would have been able to know ahead so we could have budgeted for it. 20,000 again is not much when you're looking at bigger items, but yet it can be very big when you don't have the money budgeted. And we are budgeted right down, well, we budgeted right down to the dollar. So it's an uncomfortable place to be because we want the project to be able to move forward. I don't know. I'm not sure what else.
Well, I think at the bare minimum, we will definitely make out a letter with the mayor's signature to support this project, because I think we're all in agreement with that we very much want it to move forward. We need this housing in our community. We absolutely do.
And if it is any solace, KHRC is well aware of our financial situation. We've worked with them on multiple projects for whether it was moderate income housing grants or tax credit applications over the past 5 or 6 years. We have a very good relationship with them. We speak with them on a very regular basis. So I'm hopeful that they will be incredibly understanding of our financial position right now.
Which will be a lot better someday.
Hopefully very soon.
Yeah.
Well, so I guess this is the last call for a motion. Not hearing one, I guess that is what action we can and will take. We will give you a letter of support, and but we cannot commit to the 20,000 today.
I understand. Thank you for considering. Seriously, we are very committed to the project, and we'll put in the best application we can, with or without the waiver. We will move forward with it, and we'll continue to, work on additional phases as we can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, item
And
number
Mayor,
5.
you just may, if it's the voice of the commission of the body to do that letter, whether it's signed by you or by the city manager, you might actually formalize it with a motion in that regard of the contents of what that letter would be.
Okay, so I move then that we do the letter as you described.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay,
And let the record show that Commissioner McBroom abstained from the discussion and the vote.
yes. Okay, item number 5 is going to be the Planning Commission, Historic Preservation Commission restructuring. And the first item is we're going to consider an ordinance repealing the Planning and Historic Preservation Commissions. Kelly?
Yes, Mayor, I will take this one. This is the same information that came to you for a first read also at your last meeting. There are several items included here that will need individual motions. We did make an update to your agenda packet removing item E that you see on your screen for the Certified Local Government Agreement. That has to go through the SHPO first, the State Historic Preservation Office, for approval. And they have not quite been able to get to us yet. And then also clarified that we needed an ordinance restructuring the commission prior to the CLG agreement going into place. So we will take that particular item up at your next meeting. However, there have been no changes to either any of the other items. Excuse me.
There
no.
have been no substantive changes to any of the items. A is identical. There are some slight tweaks to B, C, and D. I have printed out packets. I've placed them on your chairs in front of you. Nothing substantive, just clean up references from HPC to Historic Preservation Commission. Just looking for clarity. So if anyone in the public would like a copy, I have it right here. Sorry to
No,
interrupt.
excuse me, no, excuse me.
You're good.
So no substantive changes from what you saw last meeting. The only other thing I would mention is that, recall, this is a joint commission with North Newton. They took this item up last evening at their meeting, and it had the same items, and they were approved. North Newton will be forming their own planning commission, and they are going to, at the advice of the SHPO, forego an actual formal CLG, since they have fewer properties and they're all nationally registered and will need to go through the state and federal park service for application anyway. So we will continue to be good partners and advise contractors who have questions about the process. And as you recall, Rebecca Lickiardopoulos is our historic preservation officer, and she's worked pretty extensively with most of our contractors and with the property owners. Since there are only 3 in North Newton, they're pretty familiar with the process. And we do have applications out online for anyone interested in applying to serve on the Planning Commission or HPC. You can apply online, you can apply on paper in person, and we've already received quite a few applications. And we will be vetting those very quickly, because we have quite a few planning and development items in the hopper, and those will be coming to you for appointment at your next meeting.
And they get their own name tag.
They will.
Okay.
You too may have a Planning Commission name tag.
So what's the ordinance number for A?
It's 5119-23.
I move we approve ordinance 5119-23.
I'll second.
Okay, there is a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And item B, we're going to consider an ordinance restructuring the Planning Commission.
This is 5120-23.
I'll make a motion that we approve 5120-23.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes. Item C, we're going to consider the bylaws for the Planning Commission.
And this is just a simple motion. It doesn't have an ordinance or resolution attached to it.
I move that we consider the bylaws for the historic, for the Planning Commission.
A second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, item D, we're going to consider the bylaws for the Historic Preservation Commission.
I move we consider the bylaws for the Historic Preservation Commission.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, item E,
And item E, we would ask that that be tabled to
Table.
the next meeting, please.
table. Okay,
Do we need a formal motion?
Need a motion on that?
That'd be
I'll
great.
make a motion that we table item E.
I'll second.
okay, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, item 6, we're going to consider an ordinance amending the permit fees for special event alcohol events.
And Mayor, I can cover this. This is in response to a 2022 state legislative change regarding temporary alcohol liquor permits. Our city code had called for a $100 permit fee per event. That 2022 change limited it to $25 per day. So the city code's been updated. That was my miss. I didn't see it. This gets us in line with state law. We would support it. It's section 4-203D2 of the city code.
What's, is it, what's the ordinance?
Ordinance
51.
number, go ahead, sorry.
5121-23.
That was going to be my guess. I'll make a motion that we approve 5121-23.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, item 7, we're going to consider a lease agreement with the Newton Library Board for the new library.
I could open this one up. We may have representatives from the library that would like to discuss. This is in furtherance of your initiative to construct a new library. The attached lease agreement's been negotiated and discussed with staff from the city and from the Newton Library Board. As you recall, you previously entered into a project agreement with the library board. That's attached. It's in your packet. This is essentially that new lease. There's a current lease agreement for the current facility. We've taken that form, updated it for the new facility. There's an overview of the responsibilities of the parties. The city's still responsible for the grounds, the landscaping, HVAC and insurance requirements. The library board, their main function is to just provide quality library services at the new facility. I did have an error in my memo. It talked about interior versus exterior maintenance. Let me pull that up. It talks about the library being in charge of exterior maintenance, but that's an omission. It's accurate in the lease agreement. That would be a city function. I don't know if there's anyone from the library that would like to talk about the lease agreement, but city staff's reviewed and supports this document.
Dr. Cusick.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I will just say the library board approved this lease agreement at their meeting last night. And we appreciate the city staff and all the work that they've done. The sort of demarcation of responsibilities is very similar to historic trends, history with the library. The main thing for us from our end was it is a 20-year lease. We were operating on a year-to-year lease. And with the library and the project agreement referencing those 20 years of payments, it makes sense that we would have a 20-year lease. And so that's really the main change and our main motivation in getting this updated for the new library. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Did you find a good attorney on your end to review that for you?
We did. But it's not the one that's sitting there.
Oh, okay. Awesome, thank you.
And you will see in there that it does bring up the $65,000 that they promised each year.
All that.
So that's good.
It's pretty exciting to see the progress.
It is.
Every day.
Wow.
It is literally taking shape. We all go peek out the back doors, and it's like, okay, my office is here, and this is over there, and yeah, very exciting days.
Moving quickly.
Yes.
Even though most of us really want rain, but what a blessing it is that in a season like this, when you're building something, it's a godsend that they can just keep working every day.
Yes.
Very much.
I'd like to make that motion, Mayor, if there was a
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Next item, we're going to receive information from staff regarding the allowance of animals of school property.
I can cover this one as well. At your last meeting, you received a request from Luke Edwards, school board member, questioning whether it would be compatible for a school to have certain farm animals within the city. We included a past memo that kind of addressed this issue and a review of the city code. There is a specific exemption that is provided for schools within the city. So from our view, they are exempted. There is still obviously state and federal law, and as well it's subject to any future changes by the city commission as to city code, but we do see it as being compatible. Luke Edwards called my office this afternoon. He said he couldn't be here, but he wanted to thank the commission for looking at this. I would stand for any questions. It also showed that resolution of support that could always be updated according non-binding policy statement by this commission.
And that was from 2019, when the school board was originally considering moving the Walton School or building a new, or whether it was going to be additional grade school on the southern end of town at that point in time. And the commission at that point had adopted a resolution of support to Chris's point. So if we did need to update that for any reason, we could turn that around very quickly for you.
No action needed, just a report back. If that raises additional questions, please let us know.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, very nice. Okay, item 9, we're going to consider a resolution extending the term of Resolution G-1279, which provides the city's intent to grant tax abatement to the expansion of the Bunting Magnetics facilities in Newton. Chris?
And quickly, this is another continuation item. As you recall, Bunting Magnetics did 2 tax abatement projects. One, just for everyone's benefit, it starts with them making an application for tax abatement. Then the city approves a resolution of intent to grant it. Then they do the construction, they complete the project. They come back, we have a public hearing, and then the city commission makes it official with an ordinance. So the first tax abatement item has been completed. This is the second. You issued a resolution of intent a year ago. It's set to expire. This resolution just extends that window. They can complete the necessary steps, come back, you can have a public hearing, and make the affirmative decision to grant the tax abatement. It's really just a procedural item to continue the time. Go ahead. Do you have-
I was just going to comment, you have done this several times in the past. The most recent ones I could think of were Future Foam.
Yeah.
And also Park Aerospace. And I believe maybe
Quite
one or
often
two
where
others.
we set it for one year out and it's not, everything's completed, so we just extend the time, that's all.
It's been more common the last couple of years because of the pandemic and supply chain issues. They just can't get everything all together at the same time. And everything has to be done before they can wrap it up, completed with the ordinance, including all the machinery and equipment has to be in place. And typically that's the delay, is getting the machinery and equipment on order.
Is there a separate resolution number for this one?
That's right.
There's G13-1305.
G13 dash
I'm sorry, I said that wrong. G-1305.
1305.
Yes.
Excellent.
I would move we approve Resolution G-1305.
I second that.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next we have citizens forum, and we have Ed Meyer signed up. Welcome to come up.
First of all, I'd like to thank Commissioner McBroom. He has stood up for the people of Newton. He has obviously talked to the people of Newton about water rates, about raising their water rates, about raising taxes. So I want to thank Commissioner McBroom for all you've done for the citizens of Newton. Now, as far as the rest of you guys, your loyalty doesn't seem to be to the citizens of Newton. Your loyalty seems to be to the staff of Newton, not to the citizens. Because if you had talked to the citizens, you would have found out that the majority of people in this city do not want their water rates raised. You are not making the city affordable. And what's so obvious about not talking to the citizens, we paid $7,000 for this flash vote to get citizens' input on very important subjects, and you didn't even bother to put this in the flash vote to ask the citizens what they thought about raising their water rates. How stupid is that? But you know what you'll say? You'll say, well, we had to raise the water rates. We just had to, we had no other choice. But I'm saying there was a choice. You could have made cross-the-board cuts to save the citizens from having to be paying more for the water. Instead, you want to make the city more unaffordable to live. And you're encouraging people to leave Newton. This brochure, Choose Newton, that's a fraud. Because if you want people to choose Newton, you got to want people to live in a town that's affordable to live in. You know, I can just imagine when the next election comes up and you decide to run. And you're going to say, well, we raised your property taxes to the highest level in the history of the city. And we also raised your water rates. Vote for me. And they'll look at you and laugh. And they'll say, you know, talking to me like that, when I see my water bill, when I see my tax bill, it's like putting lipstick on a pig. People aren't going to believe you. They're going to laugh in your face. the point is that you're making this city unaffordable. People that are going to be paying these higher water rates, they're going to figure out ways not to pay them. They're going to put wells on their property, and they're going to use less water. So what's interesting for me is to come back next year to see all this revenue that you decided to raise. And when you find out that you really didn't raise any revenue, you may have actually lost revenue because the citizens of Newton are using less water and they're putting in wells. They're trying to avoid using city water from your monopoly. So the joke's on you. You have actually put yourself in a position where you decide to run again, you won't be elected. There'll be somebody to replace you because people are going to see the stupidity of your decisions of making this city so unaffordable to live. There are many, many places around this city that people can find a place to live. I could mention Whitewater, Sedgwick, Halstead, just a few that would be more affordable to live. But you've made your decision, and the election will be coming up. In the meantime, enjoy your status as a commissioner, because if you decide to run again, you're not going to win.
Well, let's go around the horn here. Rod, you want to lead us off? Well, I could say lots of things, but sometimes it's better off just to not say anything. I'm pretty proud of what we've done. We got 800 houses kind of in the works being built. You know, $400 million worth of economic development getting ready to happen. You know, I guess nobody's perfect.
Well, I would invite anyone out there to run. I would invite anyone to run. So far, nobody has signed up to run. And Mr. Myers, with all due respect, I'm confident that if any one of us does decide to rerun, you will be right there, for lack of better words, trashing any campaign that takes place. And if that's how you choose to do it, conduct yourself, so be it. Having said that, thank you to the staff and to everyone for how you do help us. I want to make it clear, I know it's been misconstrued. We often thank the staff for what they do and how they help us, but those decisions do fall on us. And we use the information that is provided to us, and sometimes we don't agree with staff. We still make a decision that we believe is the right decision. But when we are out doing our jobs every day, we are citizens that simply represent the rest of you at this bench. So when we are out doing our jobs during the day, we come here as representatives of the citizenry of this community, and we take the information that is given to us by those who work full-time doing this, and then we take this information and we decide how we're going to best use it and vote on it for this community. To say that no one's perfect is probably not helpful at all right now, but that's just the truth. We do our best. I can say that we have put lots of time and energies and hours. When you are elected to a commission, you inherit, and I know that's going to sound like a cop-out to some, but so be it. You inherit what you take on as previous commissions. That's just the human nature of it. And so then we have to work through those decisions that have been made and how we can best decide on things that come up with regard to those decisions. I think the commission knows what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
Decisions we've had to make in the past. And we have to make those decisions with the very best information that we have. It's not easy. I learned early on that you have to develop thick skin in doing this. Because my intentions have always been to do what I believe is the very right and best thing for the community. I learned early on that no matter what I want to do, I'm not going to please everyone. I just flat out understand that, and that's hard because I'm somebody that wants people to be pleased. I want them to be satisfied and happy, but I know when you're serving nearly 19,000 people, that's just not going to happen. So I will just continue to live with the peace that I have, that the decisions that I have made, a part of this commission, I'm thankful for, and I don't go back on. That's all I have to say.
No, thank you.
No, sir.
A few quick updates for you. To Commissioner Valentine's point, if you are interested in filing for election, you need to do that with the county clerk, Mr. Pifo. He will gladly help you up till the deadline, which is June 1st. So if you are interested, that information is available on the website and in person at the county, also on our website. As a reminder, last meeting you all passed a proclamation recognizing this week as National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. So thank you to our dispatchers and our 911 operators and emergency services people. Without them, we literally could not go to the calls because we wouldn't know where to go. And recall, they are not just dispatching us, but they are oftentimes taking the brunt of our emergencies. If you have to call, they will walk you through CPR, they will walk you through emergency life-saving procedures, so we are incredibly thankful for them. It's a very difficult, stressful job. And also, I would be remiss if I didn't note it is National Animal Control Officers Appreciation Week, and so we express our thanks to ACO Robinette and all the hard work she does for our community and for our partners at Caring Hands at the Humane Society. In case you missed it, you know, the state legislature has come to their spring break, so to speak, and then they'll come back in 2 weeks for their veto session. Today, Governor Kelly signed into effect a bill I thought you would find interesting. It is a statewide T21 ordinance. And so sales and consumption of all tobacco products are now statewide at the age of 21. And that goes into effect July 1st. And as you know, Newton was kind of a model ordinance for that project. So I thought that would be of interest to you. And today I also had the pleasure of being with Senator Marshall and Senator Bill Haggerty from Tennessee at a federal legislative forum hosted by the Wichita Chamber. And it was interesting to hear their perspective on a lot of what's happened, not just this session, but the last few sessions, and get updates from the federal level. One of the things they really talked about was a lot of the positive bipartisan efforts that have come out that really aren't talked about very much. One of them affects us very directly, which is basically the fentanyl crisis, and it affects all of us in the entire nation. And so that was interesting to hear their perspectives and their hard work on trying to find bipartisan issues to partner on. So I was glad to get to spend some time with them and take them on a few tours of some industry.
Baseball's in full swing, and so maybe no pun intended. But there are baseball games already happening out at Centennial Park, and this weekend the Newton Junior Railers baseball club has a tournament. So there's a couple games Friday night, start at 6. Looks like there's a second one that starts at 9:15. There's going to be about 25 games this weekend out there, and then all day Saturday. So if you need something to do or if you need a snack, there'll be concessions. Come out and watch some boys play baseball. So.
Yes, sir.
Well, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the four of you. I think the five of us as a body, you know, we talk about individually and together about feedback that we get from citizens on a variety of subjects and things that we have to deal with. And I really am proud of this body, the way we don't always agree. We didn't agree with Clint tonight on a vote, and that's okay. We respect each other. And that's the way this thing works. And we get lots of feedback from citizens about a variety of subjects, and we take that to heart. We all, every one of you, have a very caring heart, and you care a lot about this is our community. We pay the same taxes, the same water rates, the same everything. So I'm very proud of what we do. That doesn't mean we make everybody happy. We don't. But I think that we sincerely make the decisions that make the most common sense to each one of us. And for that, I'm very grateful for all of you. And we are adjourned.